This is a Photoshop tutorial for week 1, assignment 3. It's going to be fairly quick. The first steps we want to do, the first thing we want to do is begin all 5 rows with a saturated color, completely saturated. That means no white or black in the mix. Reducing saturation produces tint by adding white. Reducing brightness makes it a shade by adding black. So in order to ensure accurate results, we want to begin with a fully saturated hue. And our last color is supposed to be either white or a very light tint of white, because if I fill it with white, it's going to end up being an empty square. So rather than end up with completely invisible square, I'm going to just make sure I have a little bit of color in there so that it doesn't disappear. And incrementally, I'm going to reduce my saturation, which is like adding white to the mix, by 10% all the way down. I'm going to pause while I do that. And now you see that incrementally my slider bar, my saturation, by decreasing at 10% for each square all the way down, I have a smooth transition of tints ending in a very pale tint of green, cyan green. And for the second row, I want to end in black, so that's going to give me shade. So I don't want any saturation in it. That's like having white in the mix. I want pure black, no saturation, no brightness, black. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to incrementally decrease my brightness bar, which is like adding 10% black to the mix for every single square. And, not make that at 10%, but 90%. So I'm going to gradually decrease the saturation or the brightness by 10% all the way down and end up with a value that is much darker in converting to shades of black. I'm going to increase it a little bit further as I go down the way by a couple of extra percentage points so that I end up at 0 black. So I'm going to pause while I do that. So I decreased my brightness by 10, 12, 14% all the way down so that I would gradually end up at black. So increasing it from 10% to 60, from 90 to 80 to 68, 54, etc., so that I would end up in black. So for these final 3 rows, we want to end in a lighter value of gray. So we want 0 saturation in the mix, and we want a light value gray. It could be, 90, 85%, something like that. For the row 4, we want a darker gray, so I'm going to put 22% is fine. And for the last row, we want a value that is exactly 50%. So I'm going to do the tones progressing to a lighter value. I'm going to be decreasing the saturation at a higher rate than the brightness. Why? Because I don't want very much black in the mix, just enough that I'm going to be producing a sense of tones visible, where it's gradually becoming grayer, but there's very little black being added to the mix. So 1%, addition of black by decreasing the brightness bar gradually as I more aggressively decrease the saturation bar in, whoops, that was too far. I don't want to go too far with that. So I'm going to pause while I complete that. Okay, so I have gradually decreased the value. We can check our work as we go. Command or Alt Option U. If we're in Photoshop, this is an option. It's not an option in Illustrator. So we can Command U or Alt Option U, and we can check the value. Tints should get lighter, they do. Shades do get darker, as they should, and tones progressing to a lighter value do. So we've completed the first 3 rows. I'm going to end this one in a darker value, so we're going to gradually be decreasing both the saturation and brightness. I'm going to pause while. And now I have tones progressing to a darker value. Now I'm going to be gradually decreasing the saturation and brightness bars to end up in a middle value gray at a they're going to be closer. It's going to be less aggressive than with the going to a darker value. I'm going to pause. Okay, so I have incrementally adjusted my saturation brightness from 100% down to 76, 75, 85, whatever it was, 76, 84, 57, 77, 50, 70. So essentially I'm gradually decreasing down to a middle gray. So I'm dropping out more of the saturation so it goes gray faster than that helps keeping the brightness closer to the middle value. Command U, check our work, and it looks like we're pretty good. So we're within a few degrees. So hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions.